These are 10 things that I wish somebody would have told me when I first started my career in sales, and I hope to be that person for you as you are on your journey to becoming a successful real estate agent or sales professional. So what I'm gonna do today in today's video, I'm gonna walk you through 10 different things that are at the top of my list right now that I've learned over the past 17 years of cold calling. Now, these are just the top 10 that are on my mind right now, and I may make a future video and add to this list, but these are the top 10 things that I think about. So before we jump into the video today, I'm getting a lot of questions from you guys here on the channel about how my coaching program works and, what are all the details. And so if you're a real estate agent and you're not earning a multiple six-figure income working Monday through Friday, primarily as a listing agent, and that is of any interest to you at all, I will put a link in the description underneath this video. Feel free to click it. You can schedule some time, learn how our Listing Agent Academy program works, and then decide if it's for you or not. So let's jump into today's video. Number 10 on my list today is that the fastest and most effective way to get new clients is still cold calling. Now, before you maybe think to yourself, no, there's a better way, let me give you my experience. All right. So 17 years in the game, both in the mortgage business, insurance industry, and real estate. I've tried everything. I have done all the paid advertising you can ever think of. I've done all of the content marketing you can ever think of. And yet to this direct outbound prospecting, calling the consumer direct, is still been the fastest and most effective way to get new clients. Now, I'm not suggesting that there aren't other ways to do it. In my experience, when you call somebody directly, you get direct feedback, you get the direct decision maker on the phone on a voice-to-voice conversation. Right now, it's still, in my experience, been the fastest and most effective. Number 9 on my list, it's the most difficult way to generate new clients. So like I said, at number 10, it's the most effective, but the reason why I think a lot of people struggle with it is because the reality and the truth, it's the most difficult. Real estate salespeople, it gives them the most hang up. It gives them the highest level of resistance because it's an activity that for most people, it's something that they just want to avoid altogether. And so it's very difficult to do. It requires you to have a very strong mindset. It requires you to have a high set of sales skills in order to make direct outbound prospecting via the phone actually work for your business. And for most people, and it's not right or wrong, good or bad, they just say, you know what, that is just too difficult for me to accept. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go do social media. I'm going to go make content. I'm going to buy leads. Fine. It is very difficult. Number 8 on my list, enthusiastic tonality doesn't work. So for years, I've heard people say, you got to be all, upbeat and chipper and all this different stuff. And it just doesn't work with prospects because what happens is when you come across as such, it's a dead giveaway that you are in fact a salesperson and you're looking to talk me into something. And therefore, I'm going to do everything I can as a prospect to get out of that situation because I don't want to be in this situation. And when you have, what I would say maybe a fake enthusiasm about your tonality, it doesn't allow you to be authentic, to connect with another human being because you come across as being fake. Number 7 on my list, asking prospects, how are you doing today, is the worst way to start a prospecting conversation with someone who you've never talked to before. Now, it's different if you're doing some lead follow-up or you're calling a past client and you have a relationship. That's a different situation. I'm talking about the very first conversation with a prospect who you have no relationship and you've never talked to before, to open up a dialogue by asking, how are you doing today? Not only is it my opinion that is the worst way, not has it only been my experience that is the worst way. There's a study that Harvard did, and there's a bunch of psychologists that did a bunch of studies on this, and they have in fact confirmed that way of opening a dialogue with a stranger is the fastest way to elicit reactants, because the prospect knows you don't care. The prospect knows, I mean, they're not dumb. Come on. You think that a complete stranger calls you out of the blue and actually cares about how you're doing today? No, it's their attempt to talk you into something. It's their attempt to try and persuade you. And so what we have found, and in my experience and what all the research suggests, is that asking somebody how they're doing today to open up a prospecting phone call does more harm than good. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. And I have videos on the channel about how to start a cold call. All right, 6 on the list. 90% of your cold calls won't turn out to be an opportunity. And it's okay. If you think about the world of sales and marketing and lead conversion, you know, if you've been doing this for any length of time, most of the people are converting leads at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Well, here's another fact. Not only has this been my experience, I have tracked this for 6,000 real estate agents that have been through my Listing Agent Academy over the last 5 years. And we have tracked this, and we know this to be a fact. This is not an opinion, that 10% of the people that you reach out to direct over the phone will in fact turn into a lead or an appointment. And so if you compare that, if you looked at the headline that I just outlined and said 90% won't turn into anything and it's okay, you start to realize, wow, 10% conversion on cold direct outreach is actually better than what I'm doing or what I'm converting on some of my paid stuff. And you start to quickly understand the value in direct outbound. And so that's one thing. The other thing is this, that as you're having these conversations, that you're not forcing prospects into your pipeline that aren't real prospects, that aren't real leads, that aren't real opportunities, that 9 out of 10 or 90 out of 100 conversations aren't going to go anywhere. And that's what you want. And so a big mistake that I made in the early days of my career, and I see a lot of real estate agents still doing this, is they're trying to turn every single prospect that they talk to into some opportunity. And so we're going to talk more about that here in just a second. So let's get into number 5 on the list. Disqualifying works much better than qualifying. So this is what I'm talking about when I talked about point 6. You see, the difference between qualifying and disqualifying is this. Qualifying is when a salesperson or a real estate agent is the one doing the selling, doing the convincing, doing the persuading, trying to talk somebody into something. And disqualifying is doing the exact opposite. It's the salesperson trying to get out of doing the selling and doing the convincing and allowing the prospect to discover on their own if there's a need, if there's a motivation to even have this conversation. So what I have learned for years, I would try to do what all the big sales trainers in this space of real estate would suggest, and that be, qualify, qualify, qualify. What I have found is the exact opposite is a lot better. That if you go into a conversation looking to disqualify and you're inviting prospects to tell you no, you're going to find that 10% a lot easier than if you try to qualify. Because the second you start to say, and you start to bulldoze your way into a conversation, you say, Mr. Prospect, listen, I'm calling, I saw your house come off the market. And they're like, nope, nope, nope. As soon as you get into that, and you know this, if you've been doing any outbound prospecting, calling for sale by owners, calling expired listings, making just listed, just sold calls, the second you start pitching is the very moment that prospect starts to push back. So disqualifying works a lot better. Number 4 on the list, most of your appointments will come from lead follow-up, not the first contact. Now, you hearing that or watching this on the video probably are saying to yourself, yeah, I know, I get that. Most can conceptualize that idea. However, when it comes to practical application, this is where I think a lot of people are losing a lot of opportunity. Why? Because, and I get it, right? So what happens is we're on a phone call and we're talking to a prospect and we're trying to get the most out of that opportunity because it's like, listen, I'm here right now and I want to try to get anything I possibly can get. And for most of us, if we're being honest, we simply don't do enough prospecting. So there's a level of scarcity that we have in that activity. And so if we don't, it's like an all or nothing mindset. And the mistake is if I don't get this appointment on this call, well, that lead ends up falling through the cracks and I get nothing out of it. But you have to understand that 80% or more of your best listing appointments or your best appointments are going to come from multiple conversations with the prospect over time. And I think that for a lot of real estate agents, they get decent at calling prospects once, maybe twice, but outside of that, they just struggle. There's no organization and there's no process to it. So just understand that outbound prospecting, listen closely, pay attention, is a lead generation activity. Yeah, so what, Brandon? It means that you're generating a lead that most of the time you're not getting an appointment. Yes, we are looking for appointments, but most of the time we're looking to generate a high quality lead that goes into the pipeline. Which brings me into point number 3. Cold calling is a complete and utter waste of time if you don't understand pipeline maturity. So let's talk about it. Well, Brandon, what is pipeline maturity? Pipeline maturity is the process in which you put leads into this world of yours, and over time comes out conversion. And what most don't understand are the ratios, right? And so again, they're like this all or nothing. They want to call one prospect one time, get the appointment, and if that doesn't happen, then nothing happens. And you have to understand pipeline means multiple attempts. It's a process of disqualifying or sorting through conversations to put the right people into a follow-up system that over time manifests in consistent conversions, consistent appointments being set, consistent listings being taken. I think the biggest challenge when it comes to pipeline maturity is the patience to let the hard work pay off, because we see the pipeline needing about 90 to 120 days of consistent daily prospecting for that pipeline to start to turn over, for it to start to manifest into real solid appointments. But again, most salespeople, most real estate agents don't have the patience to do something for 90 or 120 days without seeing a result. Number 2 on the list, I'm not interested is not an objection. So again, just stuff I see in the industry, it's like, well, what's the objection handler for I'm not interested? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Our job is not to try to convince a prospect to sell their house. That is a battle you are going to lose 100% of the time. You've heard it 1,000 times. This won't be the first time, this won't be the last. No pain, no sale. You see, that's the foundation of any sale. If there is no need, there's no motivation, there's no pain that a prospect is looking to solve, and you somehow magically think that you're going to come up with some, fancy words that all of a sudden, because you put these magic words out into the world, that all of a sudden you switch the mind of the prospect who had no interest in selling their house whatsoever, that your magic words somehow alter this person's life in the matter of 2 seconds. It's never going to happen. We have to get out of the business of convincing people that have no motivation to do anything and get into the business finding people who already have made the decision that they are going to do something, and it's up to our skill set to get in front of them. That's the business that pays very, very well. The business of convincing prospects to do something that have no motivation to do it, to do anything, is a business that leads to zero income, burnout, frustration. Get out of that business as fast as you can. Then the number one thing on my list, reactants is the number one reason cold calls go badly. So what is psychological reactants? It's simply when someone feels as though their freedom to make their own decision is at risk. And this is what most people are doing on every phone call that they make. They try to bulldoze their way into a conversation because they don't understand what questions to ask or how to navigate that conversation where that sales resistance goes away, where the prospect feels safe being honest, where that prospect feels comfortable having a conversation. And without knowing those skills, it's virtually impossible for you to get a result through direct outbound cold calling. So at this point, what I would offer you is, there's an approach that I take that has helped me make cold calling not only successful, but a consistent habit in my business. And so I made a video right here. Feel free to check it out. It will walk you through a completely new approach to making your cold calls.